everybody. Welcome to this edition of the broadcast, where we give you bite-sized bits of best practices to help you be a better leader and a more effective communicator. I'm your host, Gerard Braud. So as we've been talking about crisis communications the past few weeks, I got a question from someone who wants to know, how do you identify your stakeholders for your crisis communications? Because often I use the phrase stakeholder when talking about the audiences who need to hear your message. All organizations have certain stakeholders that are identical, and other organizations have stakeholders who are unique. So the two most critical audiences during a crisis for all types of organizations would include your employees and the media. When I first started writing crisis communications plans going back to 1996, media were the most critical audience, because at that time, media were the messengers to the masses. Think about this. In 1996, the internet was in its infancy, and email didn't exist at all organizations. In fact, many corporate leaders were asking me questions like, do we really need one of these website things? We have the yellow pages. Who would ever use that? So in a short amount of time, we've come a very long way. As soon as email penetrated companies, it meant that employees could email information out to reporters, which could create a leak. So that made employees a very critical audience. I could dare say that your employees are a more critical audience today than the mainstream media is. But let's say they're equally important because the media has a greater shouting radius than your employees have. Although employees, because of social media, are increasing in their shouting radius. So therefore, treat those two audiences as equally important as possible, and the need to get them information quickly in a crisis. In a crisis, remember, we have 5 steps to effective crisis communications, which are vulnerability assessments, crisis communications plans, pre-written statements, media training, and step 5 drills. So if you have pre-written statements, it allows you to edit that statement in 10 minutes. I mean, every plan I write has pretty close to 100 to 125 of these things, so that the information can go out quickly to media and employees. But now let's look at your uniqueness. If you're an electric company, your customers, if you're an electric co-op, your members, those are key audiences. It's a unique stakeholder audience for you. If you're a school or a university, your parents and your students are your unique audience. Some companies have, retail clients or business to business clients. That's your unique audience. If you're at a hospital, your patients and the family members of your patients are your unique stakeholder audience. So as you're planning your crisis communications plan, you want to clearly identify who are all of the stakeholders. But here's a critical point. All audiences get the same information. Do not, never, ever write a unique statement for one audience that you don't share with all audiences. Now, many CEOs that I work with always say in their big boisterous voice, our employees are our most important asset and we must tell them extra. No, not at all. Because 1/3 of your employees probably don't like you, and they will rat you out and share that information with media. The whole idea of the pre-written statement, step 3 of effective crisis communications, is one statement gets sent to all audiences, media, employees, and all of those stakeholder groups. So as part of your planning, identify your stakeholders. Some are the same for everybody, and some are unique to your organization, because no two organizations are exactly alike. For the broadcast, I'm Gerard Braud.